All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for the final planning meeting of the Keystone 6 National Mass Care Exercise. Next slide. I'll just start off with some welcome and introductions. My name is David Boucher. I'm the State Exercise Officer for Pennsylvania Emergency Management. I also am working with Devin Heberling and Christine Heiser, who will be doing most of the discussion and explanation of what's going on with the exercise. Hey, just some administrative remarks. The call is being recorded, and uh, materials and the recording are going to be available at that link, and I believe that's also in the chat, so you can just click right on that then. Once this is over, you can go in and check that out. So I think there's also a QR code that you can hit for that. Hey, just to review, trusted agents are individuals on the exercise planning team who are trusted not to reveal the exercise or the scenario. Trusted agents also help develop pre-exercise materials, conduct briefings, and support the training sessions, and participate in the basic exercise. Doesn't mean that the trusted agent will need to be a controller or a player for that. And those agencies who need a trusted agent, DHS will share a trusted agent form with you, and I believe everybody on here is a trusted agent. I saw there's about 20 some folks on. So just to let you know, as we finalize the planning documents and everything, those are just for the trusted agents. Okay, so for the agenda, we did the welcome. We're going to have some planning updates. We'll go over exercise design a little bit, exercise development, and then those action items and next steps. Okay, so for planning updates, the MESL or the master scenario events list and the scenario itself are nearing completion. That's gonna be done shortly, and then they're wrapping up support for the feeding for establishing the site feeding for the exercise. Pre-exercise trainings are available, and I'll let Devin and Christine go into those further. And then most players should have received the invitation to register for the exercise. Okay, with that, just a brief exercise design overview. So earlier on, we established the objectives and aligned those capabilities. The scenario is being developed in coordination with Public Utility Commission, DHS, and PEMA. The exercise participants were made aware and gathered for that. We're reviewing the exercise documentation, and that's an ongoing process. They're being finalized, and then addressing any local issues or concerns. And with that, I'll turn it over to Christine and Devin.
Devin, that's you. You're on mute. His first time.
Yeah, a little bit of technical difficulty. So in general, the exercise focus really is the mass care components of ESF 6. Majority of the material that we're going to be addressing will be focusing on feeding operations, sheltering operations, with some reunification and support to the emergency assistance components of ESF 6 and mass care. There will be a VOAG component with the distribution of emergency supplies and evacuation support with some of our long-term care facilities, residential licensed facilities, and working with our partners in some other states to move notionally program folks to those locations. This will be a hybrid process throughout the entire week. The components focusing on the National Mass Care Exercise will be a tabletop in the process beginning, dealing with the Public Utility Commission as our part of our partners, and we'll transition to not only a tabletop but also a functional exercise, which will actually produce some products such as assessment tools, a multi-agency resource plans to support. So feeding plan, multi-agency feeding, sheltering, and other types of plans that to support county operations. Again, you can click on the link below or use a QR to scan things if need to. Next slide. Our objectives are pretty straightforward. Granted, our number one objective is actually a DHS operated component where we have a disaster response team that is to be established to run 1,000-person shelter within 6 hours of operation or request. The piece there would be an out-of-sequence event for the National Mass Care Exercise. That is a full-scale event to address any of our unmet needs or address any of our training requirements and exercise components. The second component here would demonstrate effective interagency resource coordination. As we know, just by the numbers of folks that are currently on this call, there's numerous agencies, organizations, both federal, state, local, county, as well as our voluntary agency partners, as well as other partners outside of the Commonwealth. So the important component here is that we are able to coordinate among each other, identify roles and responsibilities, stay and work within our boundaries, and make sure that we each are able to bring something to the table in order to solve a large-scale event. And our next component, number 3, is to demonstrate the ability of the mass care task forces. Over the last couple of years, under the leadership of Mike Whitehead from Florida, when he was in Florida, developed the concepts of some of these task forces. And due to some political jurisdictional issues, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has adjusted some of those concepts to try to make it state specific. And we are looking to try to address mass care services for 100,000 people, not only using the planning component, but also leveraging an operational component for coordination of resources and allocation of those resources. Next slide. The mass care components and capabilities we're looking at are just straightforward there with mass care services, operational communication, operational coordination, and planning, as well as public information and warning. Some of those will be distributed across different agencies and organizations during the exercise specifically. Next slide. Dave?
All right, it's Dave Boucher again, and we are supporting DHS's National Mass Care Exercise from PEMA. We're sending folks out there to play along as if it was occurring in real time. We also identified some other objectives. We have to do an exercise every year to make sure that our operations are up to date and ready to go. So some of those objectives that we identified: make a federal declaration request from the state declaration to emergency disaster declaration to a major disaster declaration. So that's going to be working through our legal department and recovery directorate. The second thing is testing WIA and EAS through iPause. So WIA is like cell phone messages that you might get for emergencies, and EAS is broadcasted over radio and television. One of the things we want to do is test that while we're at the CRCC or our operations center, and then also as a part of the third objective that we're going to be cooping or conducting a continuity of operations exercise for our watch center and our emergency operations center or CRCC with the assistance of some of the agency representatives. So we're going to be moving to our alternate location and testing everything from there as well. So we are going to deploy our incident management team. So we have a field component to our part of the exercise, and we're going to test our GIS capabilities to capture that common operating picture of what's going on. So we're going to have a part of the exercise that we're kind of doing our own thing, and then we're also supporting the National Mass Care Exercise, which is the priority for us. Thank you.
The scenario for the exercise has been determined to be a large-scale natural gas outage affecting a good portion of the Commonwealth. This outage will impact communities that are on those distribution lines to include public and private sectors, schools, restaurants, hotels, long-term care facilities, and grocery stores, as an example. The impacts are going to be across the Commonwealth and will potentially impact some nearby states due to the fact of the way the engineering process works for natural gas. The scenario will result in a Stafford Act declaration at various times throughout the exercise, depending if it's going to be a emergency protective measures type declaration, public assistance, and individual assistance. To include just a general major disaster declaration, as Dave already indicated. And the scenario has been developed by the Public Utility Commission in cooperation with some of their supporting entities to ensure that the realism and the actual scenario is a viable scenario. We wanted to make sure that what was happening was actually something that could potentially impact the Commonwealth, and has been something different than a historical national mass care exercise scenario such as hurricane, earthquake, or tornado. Next slide, please. The exercise participants are continuing to grow. Even though we have many organizations that are lined up, we have a lot of players and personalities who are also continuing to sign up on registration and would like to participate in the activities. I do want to say a special thanks to some of our partners there, to include Cumberland County for willing to host us. As many of you know, the Pennsylvania Constitution establishes the counties as the authority having jurisdiction, and we really wanted to participate with the counties willing to work with us, though there are many. It just happens to be that Shippensburg happened to be in Cumberland County, and it's my alma mater too, so I'm kind of happy about that. Next slide.
I think I'm up now. Thanks, Devin. Thanks, Dave. Christine Heiser here at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services. I'm going to go over some of the more nuts and bolts, logistics, who's doing what, when, and where. So I just wanted to throw up kind of a schedule at a glance. This is still in draft. Slight adjustments are being made, but just wanted to go over some of the key activities that are occurring in the course of the exercise week. So the weekend leading up to the exercise, Saturday, May 18th and Sunday, May 19th, we'll have the Red Cross on site at Shippensburg University. They are conducting their training institute and expecting a number of their volunteers and staff to be on site to participate in that event. So they'll be using a lot of classroom space for that, helping us build some of that capacity and capability, which is great. We're also planning on setting up some of our equipment, moving some logistics items, getting things ready to go. Then Monday morning at 8 a.m., we will be kicking off the shelter exercise. So this is kind of prior to the start of the National Mass Care exercise. We will be exercising a Commonwealth managed shelter. So most of what we do here at the state level is support our partners down at the county and municipal level, and the Red Cross does almost all of the sheltering in Pennsylvania, but in that kind of 1% circumstance where we need to open a really big shelter, a Commonwealth managed shelter is kind of our planning process for that. So that's what we're exercising here. I'm working in partnership with the Red Cross. And again, this is also, everything is at Shippensburg University. So we'll be utilizing the recreation center there on campus to set up a congregate shelter. So in the morning, we'll be having some training. We're doing a shelter simulation. And there's some other folks who will be working on site, including the county animal response team. Department of Health will be there doing the medical component. A number of other partners also doing some training, onboarding, that sort of thing in the morning. Then around midday, we'll be bringing in some shelter resident actors, getting them all briefed up. And then in the afternoon, we'll start the actual full-scale exercise and register those folks into the shelter and the dormitory and get them set up on cots. This shelter is meant to mimic a 1,000-person shelter, but we're expecting probably about 50 actors or so. We are hoping to recruit some folks with kids to exercise the respite childcare component, as well as some individuals with pets to put the cart to work as well. So while we are doing that, the Red Cross will be standing up their disaster relief operation and doing some training for their folks on that Monday. And then we'll kind of wrap up the day with an informal happy hour. Then the National Mass Care Exercise component is occurring Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, May 21st through 23rd. And I also want to mention that the Public Utility Commission is also conducting an exercise, a tabletop exercise, in conjunction with ours. We're actually everyone's being briefed out together at the start of the day on Tuesday, so they'll be there on site Tuesday. So play for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is expected 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and we will have sign-in and continental breakfast available at 8 a.m. So just for your planning purposes, for anyone who's planning on being there on site. You can see in the purple here on the graphic the task forces that will be activated. So all 3 days, feeding, sheltering, disability integration, reunification, and household pets will be active. On Wednesday, we will have PADHS licensed facilities task force activated. And then on Thursday, we'll be standing up housing and distribution of emergency supplies. The latter will be in partnership with the Pennsylvania Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, or PAVOAD. So they will be conducting their spring membership meeting from 9 to 11 a.m. And then after that, they'll be taking over the leadership of that distribution of emergency supplies, as well as assisting with some disaster case management items. And on Wednesday evening, we'll be having a kind of a fun and festive dinner event catered by Operation Barbecue Relief. So we're really excited to have a chance to kind of let our hair down a little bit, maybe have some music, some lawn games, have kind of like an outside picnic kind of atmosphere. And we welcome all of our exercise participants to come in and attend that event. Throughout the course of the week, all of our voluntary organization feeding partners are helping us out with meals. So Salvation Army and Southern Baptists are also providing lunches throughout the week. So we're excited for the opportunity to have them on site to exercise. And as part of that evening party, there also will be equipment setups, demonstrations. So participants will have a chance to kind of see some of the toys set up and walk through what's available. So that's kind of a brief overview of like the schedule at a glance. Many of you may have heard from me regarding registration. Registration is open. Most players have been contacted individually by myself. As you saw on the past slide, we have lots of different moving parts, and we want to be really clear about who's expected to be a player and where and which days and which task force, and it's a lot. So thanks for bearing with me. And if I missed you, it was not at all intentional. So if you've not heard from me and you are expecting to be a player on site, please reach out so we can sync up and make sure that we get you registered where you need to be. So by the middle of this month, April 15th, I'm going to go through and we'll see who we've got on which days for which task forces and determine how many spaces we may have available on the various task forces. And if we have extra space to bring in some additional players, would love to include some additional stakeholders. But thanks for understanding that we do have limited space available on each task force. I wish I could invite anybody and everybody, because trust me, I love working with all of our partners throughout the Commonwealth. So our scope is focused again on those mass care functions that Devin discussed earlier. So we have to kind of choose our participants based on what's going to help us build capacity and capability. I've been getting a lot of questions recently on lodging. Dormitory lodging at the university is unfortunately extremely limited because there's some other activities going on campus throughout this time period. So primarily it's our Red Cross partners who are utilizing that dormitory space, a few other of our VOAD partners, and we're doing the best we can with allocating that. So again, just thanking everybody for their patience. We do have a hotel room block that's available at the Courtyard Shippensburg, which is like right adjacent to campus. Those rooms are available for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening with checkout on Thursday. The rate there is $124 a night, which is above the GSA rate, which I believe is $107. So, you know, if you need a justification in order to book above the GSA rate, you can let your powers that be know that there are huge events that are occurring on campus the weekend prior and the weekend after our exercise, and that is making a lot of the local hotels unavailable. So if that helps your justification, you know, feel free to let your folks know about that. And if this hotel block doesn't meet your needs, feel free to book wherever you'd like. There are certainly hotels available in nearby Carlisle or Chambersburg, which is like a 15-mile-ish drive. Also, to help your planning purposes and cost estimating, we will be providing the lunches from our VOAD partners that I mentioned throughout the course of the exercise, as well as continental breakfast. And then again, that dinner will be provided on Wednesday. I mentioned the big events going on campus, and I just want to underscore that the university is expecting on Memorial Day weekend like 20,000 student athletes and spectators for the PIAA track meets. And there's a slightly smaller event the weekend prior, but regardless, there's going to be a large number of student athletes, spectators, perhaps media, VIPs. So we want to make every effort to avoid disrupting any of those events and the preparation for that event. So we're doing everything we can to lessen the burden on university staff. So just want to make you all aware that it's a top priority of ours to make sure we're taking good care of the facilities. So on our team, Travis Woodyard is taking the lead on event logistics for this exercise. So he's also serving as our liaison to Shippensburg University. So I know many of our folks who have heavy, logistics heavy components have already been in contact with Travis. His email's up there. You can also contact me if you need to get a hold of him and you aren't sure how to. He has been handling all of the room assignments, technology needs, including setup of a SharePoint site that's going to enable us to do real-time situational awareness during the exercise. He's been booking all of the wraparound support that our VOAD feeding partners need. And again, that liaison function. So it gives me so much pleasure to say that's a Travis question at this point of the game because he's doing a bang-up job getting everything set up for us. As far as what's left on our planning timeline, we are scheduling a participant briefing for May 8th, 1 to 2 p.m. That's going to be virtual on Teams. I'm going to share a link to register for that at a later time with everyone who's officially registered. So you don't need to take any action other than to save the date if you're planning to be an exercise participant. We also have scheduled the combined controller evaluator briefing. That will be May the 15th from 1 to 3 p.m. Also virtual on Teams. Same thing. I'm going to see everybody who's registered, assign the controllers evaluators, and then I will send you a link to register for that to get the call-in information. So save the date for that. Of course, the actual exercise is occurring the week of May 20th. And then we're expecting the draft after action report that our friends at FEMA National Exercise Division will be working on for us sometime in June. A meeting to kind of go over that, deconflict, develop the improvement plan sometime in July, and then having the finalized after action report and improvement plan sometime in September. So looking forward to using this exercise as a chance to see where the gaps are and kind of develop a plan to inform our work in the coming years. Dave mentioned that we have some pre-exercise training opportunities. Really excited about these to offer a value add to everyone here. And you can feel free to share these opportunities with your partners as well. And I'll drop the links in the chat here once I'm done speaking. But I have 2 webinars coming up. The first one is on Friday, April the 26th at 1 o'clock. This will be virtual on Teams. We are pleased to have Mike Whitehead from the American Red Cross give an overview of a brand new tool that just launched on the National Mass Care Strategy on use of mass care task forces. So he's going to talk about how the task forces can help drive some of those planning assumptions for mass care. Then the next one is on Friday, May the 3rd, also at 1 o'clock. We have a couple of folks from UGI, which is one of our natural gas distribution companies in Pennsylvania. that will be doing like an awareness level overview on natural gas distribution. So call it Natural Gas 101. So we can learn a little more background information, which will hopefully enable us to jump into the scenario information and think about what some of those downstream effects will be if there's a disruption in natural gas. So I invite you to attend either of those. And then I also wanted to highlight a course that's upcoming. You may already have this information in your email if you're on our distribution list, but this is MGT 487, Mass Care, Shelter, and Relocation Coordination. Big shout out to Michelle and Mike at Cumberland County Department of Public Safety for hosting this course for us. It will be held on Tuesday, May the 16th. That's a full day course, 9 to 5. This is a hybrid in-person Zoom. So if you are within the 9-county South Central Task Force area, it's expected that you'll participate in person at Cumberland County Department of Public Safety in Carlisle. And if you are outside of that area, you can participate in Zoom. We've had a huge response to this course, so they actually added additional seats to accommodate other folks who wanted to attend virtually. And these are all open to people in state, out of state, anybody and everybody, mass care or emergency managers who are looking to improve their planning for mass care. So again, I'll get the links for you in the chat here shortly. So action items, we do have some work yet to do on finalizing our logistics, getting that schedule hammered out, the staffing, assigning everybody to their positions, finishing up the documentation. Again, thank you to FEMA National Exercise Division. They've been helping us behind the scenes with a lot of that documentation. And then for you guys, want to make sure we get everybody registered by April 15th if you'll be participating on site. And then once you're registered, please be on the lookout for communication regarding your assigned role. Again, a lot of moving parts, a lot of task forces, so we want to make sure we get everybody where they need to be. We'll also be sharing information about where you're to report, when you're to report, where to park. And then again, I'll also be sending those invitations to the participant briefing and the controller evaluator briefing if you're filling one of those roles. So that concludes my portion here, and I saw some things come in the chat here, so let's take a look. Are any of the MISO elements for the National Mass Care exercise being exercised during Monday's shelter full-scale exercise? So the measles for the Monday shelter exercise and the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday National Mass Care exercise are separate, but some of the items that we're addressing will be at both, but kind of a different scope and scale. So like one shelter is going to see different needs than a sheltering task force, which is looking at the overall response, dozens of shelters, perhaps thousands of people. So hopefully that addresses your question, Mike. Mike Whitehead asked for the link for players to register for the exercise. I'm still disseminating that individually, so please forgive me for my deft grip on the control of that registration link, but if you need it, please email me and I'll ensure that you have it. And just to note that the American Red Cross is doing their own separate registration. So if you are a Red Cross player and you've been assigned to the DRO or you're involved in the training over the weekend, please register using that Red Cross link only. And then if we have any duplicates, we'll deconflict once we have everybody signed up. And then did I mess up a date on the MGT 487? Thursday, May 16th. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a Tuesday, it's a Thursday. Thanks for that correction, Britton. So that's all the questions I see in the chat right now. Devin, Dave, Britton, anything you guys wanted to chime in?
Nope, I think we hit our objectives. If there's any questions, feel free to ask us.
Did you have anything additional?
No, we're good from the FEMA side of things.
There is one question in the chat.
Thanks. I see a question from Dan. Will there be provision for hospital patients who will be without food, no gas, no hot meals? That's a good question. So a lot of the stuff related to hospitals is heavy in the emergency support function 8 public health side. But if we're talking about there's a need for food at a hospital and they're not able to get meals from their normal locations, that's a great question. And that could certainly come up to the feeding task force via our agency representative with the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So potentially, we'll see, Dan. Another inject to add to the measle, maybe. If anybody wants to voice a question, you can feel free to raise your hand. If there's something else you want to put in the chat, kind of now's the time. I have a question from Ben. Do we have any neighboring state VOAD folks participating in one way or another? I don't know that we do. Is Nick Stoops on the call? Nick Stoops is our PEMA Val. I don't know if you had invited any contiguous state VOADs. We are
Christine, I'm here.
Okay, do you have any neighboring state VOADs expected to participate?
I'm not aware at the moment. We have invited a few on a number of our regional calls the past few months, but I will have a check-in with them actually in the next couple of days, so I can take a roster and see who's coming.
Okay, yep, and we'll just sync up and make sure we have a role for those folks so they know where they would fit in.
Yeah.
Alan Clark from Crawford County asked if there'll be any exercises or involvement in the Northwest Pennsylvania counties. He heard the Red Cross may be setting up feeding operations in the Corey area. So the Red Cross is setting up, I think, 6 or 7 demonstration shelters. I don't have the locations of those. If anybody from the Red Cross does and wants to voice them or put them in the chat, that would be great. And I haven't heard of anything feeding operations. Can anyone from the Red Cross address Alan's question?
I'm sorry, please repeat the question.
Hey, Bill. Alan Clark from Crawford is asking about involvement in the Northwest Pennsylvania area. Are there demonstration shelters scheduled to be set up there? And is there a feeding operation in the Corey area?
As far as I know, yes to the first, no to the second. However, I can follow up on that just to be sure. What we're doing is twice a year, we're supposed to run shelter drills. So we're doing our spring shelter drills in conjunction with this exercise.
Dan asks, are broadcasters participants in this exercise in terms of disseminating information to the public? No, that would be simulated, but some of the public information components are certainly a portion of this exercise. So if we're setting up feeding sites or distribution of emergency supply sites, I would expect part of the operational plan that the task forces would develop would be how they would disseminate that information to the whole community. So broadcasters may certainly be part of that, but they are not actually players in the exercise. So we'll simulate that. Any other questions anybody wants to voice or put in the chat? All right, so I'm going to stop the recording.